Writing the journal for Miss Zalowski was as much fun as it was work. Even if I didn't tell her about being with Zachary and Delphi, I enjoyed writing about Apollo and Dionysus. Max had shown me some sketchbooks she made in Greece. Line drawings not of the present, but of the past. Samel and the Swan, Jason being brought up by the centaur Chiron, Orpheus with his harp. There were other notebooks I loved looking through, each one dealing with a special place in time. The Bushmen of southern Africa, a race of tiny people who had come, Max thought, originally from Egypt. Shakticoke Indians from the part of New England where my grandparents still live and where I was born. The nomads, or Numidians, of North Africa. Max had not been familiar with Gaia, so I showed her some more pieces I had written about the native Gaians. I didn't go into anthropology, just wrote about the way they lived, accepting some things from the 20th century, rejecting others. She liked my Gaian pieces, and so did I. It was nevertheless a complete surprise the day she called and suggested I come over for supper, that she had something to show me. Let's go to the bedroom, she said. I have a good fire going, and with the February northeastern blowing, it's the warmest room in the house. It can be colder on Benicia Island than in the Arctic. Where's Urs? Where's Urs? Shopping on the mainland, planning something special for supper. I paused on the landing, as usual, to look at the laughing Christ. There was no way one could feel self-pity in front of the absolute joy. Even in laughter, the face reflected a tolerance and forbearance that made me ashamed of my own tendency toward judgmentalness. Max paused too. I'm glad you like him. We went on up the stairs. The long windows in Max's room that led out onto the veranda were closed, and though we could hear the wind sweeping around the house, the fire was comforting. What did you have to show me? I asked. She smiled at me, the firelight bringing out silver glints in her eyes, then moved slowly to her desk and got an envelope, which she handed to me. It was addressed to Polyhymnia O'Keefe, CEO Maximiliana S. Horne. It had come from a travel magazine, not an important one, but still a real magazine, and they had accepted one of my pieces on Gaia. I wouldn't get any money, but I'd get 2 complimentary copies of the magazine. I couldn't believe it. Max laughed and took my hands and swung me around, and I saw an ice bucket on a stand near the fireplace. This calls for a celebration. She put a napkin over the bottle and uncorked it gently. The idea that the champagne cork should pop out to the ceiling is insulting to good champagne. We lay on the rug in front of the fire, and after a while, Ursula came in and joined us. She brought a bowl of shrimp which had been caught that afternoon and some spicy sauce. It was lovely, one of the happiest times I'd ever known. And I was happier at home, too. The fact that I hated school no longer seemed important. Max was my teacher, as Mother and Daddy had been my teachers on Gaia, and because I was learning and felt happy about it, I was more patient with the little kids. I helped get them ready for bed without being prodded, read to them if Mother was working with a computer in the lab. I let Kate borrow my favorite necklace for one of the school dances. Xana and I didn't spat as much as usual. And at least a couple of times a week, I did my homework over at Baudelaire. When I finished with the written stuff, Max would pull a book down from one of the library shelves and have me read aloud to her. You're going to have more than one option when you come to choose a career. You have a lot of acting ability. I'm too ugly. You aren't ugly at all. You have the kind of face that comes alive when you're speaking. Why would I want to paint you if you were ugly? I'll take you over Kate any day. Max taught me to see the world around me with her painter's eye. Now I noticed not only the loveliness of a new moon seen through a fringe of Spanish moss, I saw also the delicacy of a spider's web on the grass between 2 tree roots, saw the little green lizard camouflage under a leaf. And this scene, the particular wonder of the ordinary, was reflected in what I wrote for school, but if Miss Zalowski was the one who gave the grades, but if Miss Zalowski noticed it, she didn't particularly like it. And Miss Zalowski was the one who gave the grades, and I had to get good grades. Why? Max demanded. One does not live by grades alone. I want to go to a good college, and I need to get a scholarship. After all, there are 7 of us to educate, so grades matter. Max put the back of her hand to her forehead in a swift gesture of apology. Of course, stupid of me. Like most people who never had to worry about money, I can be very dense. So, how do we win Miss Zalowski? Get her to give you A's instead of B's? Get her to give you A's instead of B's. What does Miss Zalowski want? That's the first question you have to ask. You don't have to compromise in order to please her. Find out what she's looking for, and then give her that in the very best way you possibly can. I don't want to give Miss Zalowski anything. You really dislike her, don't you? She grades it fairly. You're very opinionated, Polly. Part of becoming a mature woman is learning compassion. I know I'm opinionated. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just think. You talk about being odd man out. How do you think Miss Z feels? It took me a while to answer. Lonely, and maybe insecure, and that may help explain why obscure poetry is comforting to her. I'll bet she loves footnotes and all the vines of the grove of Agadem. The next time she gives you a free writing assignment, give her a well-documented essay. It'll be good discipline for you. It was. Max made me see the fun of cross-referencing, of finding out, for instance, what was happening in the world of science when Montaigne was writing his essays, and what the lineup of nations was, and who was painting, and what was the popular music of the day. And it worked. Miss Zalowski didn't seem such a bore to me, and her nasal southern accent didn't grate so, and she gave me A's. Max taught me to understand that Miss Zalowski was far lonelier than I was. She taught me to see that some of the kids who drank and slept around were lost and groping for something they couldn't find. But she didn't have much patience with those who hunted down animals and birds. Sadism isn't limited to the rich and corrupt. One doesn't tolerate it even when it comes from ignorance and stupidity. Ben, come out on the porch. I brought in a Cape Jessamine bud this morning. It's blooming in a small crystal bowl, and the air is full of its scent, and the promise that spring is just around the corner. Through Max's eyes, I saw more than I'd ever seen before. One beautiful early spring evening, Max and Ursula came to dinner. Daddy and Urs went to the lab as usual. When dinner was ready, Mother sent me to call them. As I came to the screen door, I heard my name and stopped. You mustn't let Polly bother Max, Daddy was saying. Polly has Max confused with God, and she'll give her no peace if Max goes on encouraging her. Ursula laughed, her warm, same laugh. I dare say God gets no peace either, and I'm sure he continues to give encouragement. Max has certainly brought out the best in Polly. I realized I'd done enough eavesdropping and banged on the door to call them into dinner. At dinner, Kate and Zan were talking about trials for the school spring play, open to everybody in the high school. It was always a Shakespearean play, and this year was going to be As You Like It. Zan said, they chose that because there are so many female parts. They never get enough guys. Oh, come on, Zan, Kate urged. If you try out, you'll get any part you want. It'll interfere with tennis. No, it won't, Kate said. They schedule a rehearsal so it doesn't interfere with anything. I knew she talked him into being in the play, and she'd probably be Rosalind. Max asked, what are you going to try out for, Polly? I used Zan's ploy, which hadn't worked for Zan. I'll be practicing for swimming. I told you, Kate said. The rehearsals are during school hours. You could have one of the boys' parts if you want, Paul. They always have to use girls, too. I saw Max and Ursula look at Kate, then at each other. Daddy said, I don't think Polly needs to limit herself to male roles. Oh, I didn't mean, Kate said. It's just that she's tall and they need tall girls to play men. I tried out for the play the year before and had a walk-on. Even so, it was the most fun I've had from school the whole year. Do you get a choice of whom you try out for? Ursula asked. Kate said, well, you can ask. Zan said, I'll try out if Polly will. Oh, sure, I said. At least I can paint scenery. I did not mention that I had no intention of trying out for the backstage crew. I was going to try out for Rosalind or Celia. Miss Ilowski did the casting. In March, Baudelaire was brilliant with azaleas and great bags around the house. Max's gardener got extra help, and the grounds rivaled the great gardens in Charleston. The magnolia trees were heavy with waxen white blossoms. The camellias were exceptionally brilliant. All the long windows were open to the verandas and the ocean breeze and the singings of the mockingbirds. On the day of the tryouts, I got home from school to find a normal kind of chaos. The little kids had friends over and were shouting out on the swings and slime. The lab door was shut with an old hotel do not disturb sign on it, which meant Mother was doing something tricky with equations on the computer and needed to concentrate. I called Max. I have news. Good? Terrific. Come on over and tell me. Earth is in Charleston and I was going to call you anyhow. You beat me to it. I didn't want to disturb Mother about the Land Rover, but Zan said go ahead. He'd tell Mother as soon as the lab door was open again. So I headed for Baudelaire, singing at the top of my lungs. Max was out on the steps waiting for me. So, what's this big news? I'm going to play Celia in As You Like It. She flung her arms wide, but gave me a big hug, then pulled back. Who's playing Rosalind? One of the seniors? What about Kate? A shepherdess. Max laughed. I'm delighted about Celia, absolutely delighted. She has some splendid lines. With the right director, Celia can be almost as good a role as Rosalind. She pulled me into the hall. Let's go up to my veranda. There's a lovely breeze. On the landing, we paused to look at the statue of the Laughing Christ. He approves, Max said. He thinks you're terrific. When we got out on the veranda, I sat at the glass-top table to get my homework out of the way. Max curled up on the cushioned wicker couch and read till I'd finished. When she saw me putting my books away, she said, your parents have done a good job with you, Polly, and they've taught you something contrary to today's mores. That instant gratification is a snake in the grass. What do you mean? I zipped up my book bag. When you eat a meal, what do you eat first? What do you eat last? I eat what I like least first and save what I like best till last. Why? Because people who eat the best first and then likely can't finish the meal are apt to do the same way with the rest of their lives. Fun first, work later, and the work seldom gets done. I giggled. What's funny? A couple of years ago when we spent Christmas in New England with the grandparents, I was asked out to dinner with some friends who had a daughter my age and they had turnips. So I ate mine up fast so I could get rid of them and get to the rest of the dinner. And the mother saw me and beamed at me and said how wonderful it was that I liked her turnips so much. And before I could say anything, she gave me another great big helping. I was almost sick. Max laughed. Don't let it stop you from saving the best. When you came in today, you sat right down and did your homework, now putting it off till later. Well, as you said, if I put it off, I won't get it done. What about your classmates? I pondered briefly. Some do the work, some don't. How do they expect to live? I don't think they think much about it. I think about it, but I haven't got anywhere. You'll do all right, whatever you choose. Wait. She disappeared into the bedroom and came back with a book. Listen to those mockingbirds, she said. They sound right out of the forest of Arden. She riffled through the pages. Here. This is practically my favorite line in all of Shakespeare, and it's Celia's. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, and most wonderful, and yet again wonderful. And after that, out of all whooping. It's going to be fun, I said. Rosalind has a line of I love. Do you not know I am a woman? What I think I must speak. A bit chauvinist, Max said. Maybe men ought to speak more than they do, I suggested. Stay here, Max said again, and disappeared once more, but instead of coming back with a book, as I expected, she came with a bottle of champagne. Nettie and Ovid had left some salad for us in the icebox, she said. We never got to it. We kept reading bits and pieces from As You Like It, and then some other plays, sad ones, funny ones. I never before realized just how alive Shakespeare is, how very present. When I got home, I parked in the shed at the end of the lab wing. I felt tingly, and as though the ground was about a foot lower than it ought to be. I walked to the dunes and stood looking down at the water. Then I turned back to the house and heard the phone ring. It wouldn't be for me, so I didn't pay any attention. When I reached the lab, Daddy was standing in the doorway. Come on in the lab for a minute, Polly. I went in and sat on one of the high stools. I just answered the phone, and it was Max, very apologetic because she was afraid she'd given you too much champagne and shouldn't have let you drive home. I could feel that my cheeks were flushed. You always let us have a little wine when you have it. There was such a thing as moderation. I'm grateful to Max for calling me, but surprised she let you drink so much. We didn't have that much. How much had we had? I had no idea. Max kept filling my glass before it was empty, and I certainly wasn't counting. Daddy sat on the stool next to mine. On the high counter was a pad full of mathematical scribblings, Mother's writing. Daddy moved the pad away. Max was concerned enough to call to see that you were safely home. I felt deflated and defensive. You're a minor, Polly, and you're not accustomed to drinking, and it's very easy to have too much without realizing it. Please don't make a case out of it, Daddy. Max isn't in the habit of giving me too much to drink. We were celebrating. Celebrating what? I'm going to play Celia in As You Like It. It's a really good role. That's wonderful news, honey. Just don't over-celebrate next time. Have you told Mother? I haven't had a chance to tell Mother. She's reading to the little ones. Why don't you go tell them and send Zan out to me if you see him? He hasn't cleaned the lizard tanks. I cleaned my share of the tanks in the morning before school so I wouldn't have it hanging over me. Zan probably does a better job than I do, but he leaves it till last thing. He does it. I don't think he's forgotten more than once, but he puts it off. Okay, Daddy. What, my dear? I'm not drunk, really. It's as much excitement about getting a part in the play as anything. Zan's playing Jacques, by the way, but he couldn't care less. And Kate, she's one of the shepherdesses. Is she disappointed? Yes, but I didn't have even a walk-on when I was Kate's age. Daddy put his arm around me. We hoped that Kate would be a friend for you, a girl you could have fun with. Kate's okay. He pulled me closer. Polly, you don't have to compete with Kate in any way. Not in looks, not in talent, not in school. I wouldn't have you be any different. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. I truly don't have favorites among my children, but you are my first child and very special. I love you. I returned his hug. You're special too, and I wish that there were more times when Daddy and I could have time alone. Daddy and Ursula went to Charleston together the next week, and I think they talked about all that champagne because there wasn't any more after that, at least when Ursula was there. And as a matter of fact, the next time Max brought out champagne was the day after the production of As You Like It. The performance was in mid-April, so as not to interfere with all the academic stuff that accumulates in the last semester. As You Like It was a big success, and I even got my own curtain call, and everybody said what a pity it was to put in all that work for one performance. But it was worth it, at least for me. Max called me over to celebrate. Ursula had been to see me play Celia, but flown to New York in the morning for some kind of big consultation. Max brought out a bottle of champagne, but we had only one glass each, and with it a lot of fried chicken, which Nettie had fixed for us, and a big casserole of okra, onions, and tomatoes. I don't like okra. I think you have to be born to it, and I told Max I was eating it first to get it out of the way. That weekend, there was a school dance, and I went with the guy who played Orlando. Rosalind was going steady with another senior. We were We were to meet at the school, so I drove Zan and Kate. Zan was going stag, and he said he didn't trust Kate's day to bring her home. If Daddy wanted me to have a warning about booze, I got it. The girl who played Phoebe got sick all over herself. Go help her clean up, Zan said disgustedly. The kids she came with are all stoned, and so's Kate's so-called escort. Kate came and helped me. Not bad Coopertown High's full of alcoholics and junkies. Just a few, like any other high school, but even a few is too many. After we got Phoebe moderately tidy, Zan and Kate wanted to go home. I was actually having a good time with some of the kids from the play who seemed aware of my existence for the first time. The boy who played Oliver was dancing with me when Zan came over, followed by Kate, who was followed by half a dozen boys. I didn't want to leave, but I was the one with the driver's license, and maybe it was better to leave while I was doing well and wasn't what the Coopertowners so-called a wallflower. We talked about the dance the next night at dinner, and I suppose it was a good and maybe unusual thing that we could talk with our parents. Pot is an ambition damper, Zan said in his most dogmatic voice. You're right, Daddy agreed, but on what do you base your conclusions? The kids who use pot regularly aren't doing much, and they don't seem to care. Dan put in, I'm pitching in the next game between Mulletville and Coopertown. Y'all coming? Kate picked up on Zan's last remark. They didn't learn their lines for As You Like It, and they simply dropped some of the light cues. The shepherdesses were practically in the dark. Hey, you should see me do the double flip. Johnny tried to get our attention. Zan cut across his words. It hasn't helped the tennis team. Any addiction's a bad thing, Daddy agreed. Peggy said loudly, we're going to have an addict sale at school. Zan's addicted to tennis, Dan said. When do you think I'll be old enough to wear a bra? Peggy shouted loudly enough so that she was finally heard. A long time if you're anything like Polly, Zan said, and went on. I don't want to be addicted to anything. I don't want some chemical to be in control of my body, or mine. A lot of kids are smoking, Kate added. Not just pot, cigarettes. Yuck. Dan made a face. With all the pollution we have, no choice about breathing. Why add to it? Smoking's gross, Peggy said. More rice and gravy, please, please. Rosie jogged Mother's arm. We can't do anything about acid rain, Zan continued, as though there had been no interruptions or interpolations or red tides, but we don't have to put gunk into our lungs on purpose. Dan grinned at me. Or does he mean on porpoise? At least Zan and Kate hadn't called me a Puritan palm. Later, while we were brushing our teeth, Kate asked me, have you ever tried pot? I shook my head. Minority me. I don't like it. Don't worry, I haven't smoked here. It was last year in Boston. I hated it. You know what? I think it's more square to try pot than not to. I hope your parents don't think Coopertown is unique. It's no worse than any place else. I know, I agreed. And at least we have swimming and crew almost all year round, and Shakespeare. You're really good, Paul. That was nice of Kate, and I thanked her. Playing Celia had done me no harm at school. I was in my Celia costume, but I was not in the forest of Arden the kids had made with branches of trees hung with Spanish moss. I doubt if there was Spanish moss in the real forest of Arden, but it was a pretty set. Rennie was dressed in the forest green costume Orlando had worn. I was dreaming. In Athens, I was dreaming of Rennie, who led me under a tree which became enormous, looming up through the roof of the stage at the end of the school gym. Why Rennie in Athens 2 nights in a row? Why not Rennie? I saw him maybe every other week. Sometimes we went to the movies if anything decent was showing in Coopertown. Usually we sat in our booths in our booth at Petro's and talked. The place smelled of cheese and tomatoes and a whiff of fish from the other restaurant on the dock. Rennie went on and on about his pet South American diseases. He talked to me about medicine as though I could understand everything he said. He thought I was terrific at Celia, and he had to get someone to cover for him in order to come see the show. I like the way he never put me down. I like the way he kissed me, giving rather than taking. Sometimes he talked about his girl, Jacinta, in Chile. They really had a big thing going. Someone would have to do a lot of measuring up to get Rain's attention. Sometimes when he kissed me, I understood that steady, sturdy Rennie could unleash a lot of passion at the right moment and with the right person. I was safe because I was too young. I wasn't too young with Max, and that's one reason I loved being with her. Chronology didn't enter into it. Max was as young as I was, and I was as old as Max. And when Ursula was there, I was treated as an equal. I had emerged from my dream of running into that half-waking, half-sleeping state where thoughts are not really directed but shift around like the patterns in a kaleidoscope. I slid deeper into sleep, thinking to myself about the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome.